putting yourself first really is essential. Like there is no getting around it. And I know that's something that our society is just conditioned into moms, that like you should be able to do it all and be selfless and put yourself last. That's what makes you a good mom. But it doesn't really actually in the long run make you good for anyone, because you're going to be so tired and so depleted. And that's where
And
a lot of that
angry and
mom,
yelling and
yes. Yeah, that's what I mean. So we can argue and like convince ourselves that basically having that, martyred motherhood aspect of I do everything for everybody else and I put myself last, but it's kind of like, well, how's that working for you? Like you're irritable and
yeah.
then you feel terrible about it. It's like not actually helping your relationships. And I think as moms, the biggest gift that we can give to our children is our own health.
Welcome to the Well-Nourished Mother podcast. This is a show for women who desire a deeper, more mindful and meaningful pregnancy, birth, and motherhood experience. In this space, we bring so much reverence to the rite of passage that is the maiden to mother journey. I'm your host, Lauren Fortuna Flock, founder of Nest and Nourish. I'm an ex-nurse turned birth worker, holistic nutritionist, and somatic coaching student with a fiery passion for birth prep and motherhood prep that blends the head and the heart. Join me for inspiring conversations with experts, mothers, and all-around badass wise women, exploring all the ways we can nourish ourselves, body, mind, and heart, in pregnancy, birth, and motherhood. This space will help you cultivate the knowledge, practices, and resources you need to be the most embodied, vibrant, authentic, intuitive, and well-nourished mother you deserve to be. So welcome. Let's do this. Hello and welcome back to episode, oh my gosh, what are we at here? Episode 16. I know it has been a while since I've released an episode. I ended up taking a very nice and long kind of winter holiday break. So thank you for sticking around. Thank you for hanging out and for tuning in and listening today. So today on the show, I am chatting with a friend of mine. Her name is Katie Galvin, and she is a functional diagnostic nutritionist. She is also a postpartum doula. She's a wife and an unschooling mom of two. Katie's passion is helping guide moms on their healing journey as they learn to deeply nourish and nurture themselves, body, mind, and spirit. I love this so much because, as moms, as a mother, I know you in particular, I know you take such great care of everyone else in your life. So this episode is kind of like a very loving and gentle call out to take stock of where you might be putting yourself last. It's time to deeply nourish and nurture yourself, my friend. It's so easy, like I said, to kind of put ourselves last and to, make sure everyone else is fed and watered and nourished. And meanwhile, you're eating scraps off the floor and feeling like garbage. Having Katie on the show was partly pretty selfish. I really wanted to chat with her. We recorded this back in December, and at the time, I found myself in a really, really depleted state. I have been struggling with some really crushing fatigue, and I kind of just thought it was all to do with, low iron, just not eating very well. So anyways, I found myself in this really, really bad spot, and it was kind of so slow. It kind of shifted into that so slowly that I didn't really realize it was happening at the time until suddenly I was just so unable to do anything. I would go out grocery shopping, for an hour, come home and literally have to lay down on the couch because I didn't have any physical energy. I will say that so much has shifted since then, and I'm feeling so much better now. And I definitely started implementing a lot of the tips and practical advice that Katie shares in this episode. So this chat is all about, how to nourish yourself, how to take care of yourself. And I don't know about you, but I am so over kind of health and wellness advice that just doesn't make sense for moms. A lot of it is so not practical. for mothers and for the unique needs and challenges of being a mother. So I really made sure that, what we were talking about was practical and made sense for moms. And Katie is a mom as well. She gets this. So this is why this chat is so helpful, I think. So yeah, so if you're in the depths of postpartum right now and feel like you're in a little bit of survival mode, listen up, this chat is for you. And if that's not you, well, honestly, there's still so many great tips in here to help you feel better. Simple shifts, swaps, and additions to get your body and mind in a healthy state so you can show up as the mother you really want to be. And, motherhood is an inherently, or I should say kind of like postpartum, which is forever, but early postpartum, those first few years especially, is an inherently stressful time on your body. Your hormones are changing. Literally your physiology is changing. Your identity is shifting. It's inherently stressful because it's new, it's something different. And that's not to buy into this idea that, oh, motherhood is so stressful and hard and there's nothing good about it. No, I don't subscribe to, that narrative at all. But it is inherently stressful on your body, on your heart, on your mind. It's new. It stretches you. It brings you to your edges, and that's okay. But focusing on your own health, your own nutrition, your own nourishment, movement, all of these good things, learning to put yourself first. Or maybe I should say just learning to not put yourself absolutely last is a more kind of titrated way of going about that. But learning to accept that, you have to take care of yourself to be able to take good care of your children, of your family, of everybody else. So that's what this is really all about. And I'm really excited to share this chat with you. And I think that there's going to be a lot of really good little kind of golden nuggets in there. Golden nuggets? You know what I mean? Yeah. All right. I will stop rambling now. So my last request is, if you love the show, please rate and review on Apple or Spotify. It really just helps this show grow and evolve, and I am so grateful for all of your support. So let's get into it. Hi, Katie.
Hi, Lauren. How are you?
I'm doing really well. Yeah, I'm so excited to chat with you today. I'll start us off how I start them all off. Can you share a word or phrase to describe your current season of motherhood?
That's a good question. I would probably say trust and surrender. Yeah, just because I'm in the season of motherhood where I'm learning to reparent myself. And so a lot of things that are coming up, I'm just finding myself saying, I need to trust that this is an opportunity for my own healing, and also to maybe make some different choices in terms of how I, raise my babies and the things that I say to them. And then in terms of surrender, it's again kind of just surrendering to the moment and really just allowing it to be and not having expectations for it to be a certain way. And just, again, trusting that there's no matter what happens, something in it is for me and it's there to teach me something.
That's beautiful. Yeah. Such an important kind of mind frame to have, for sure. So Katie, can you tell us more about who you are? I want to know everything.
Okay.
What do we need to know about Katie Galvin? Who are you? What are you passionate about? And what kind of work do you do?
Well, I am a wife and a homeschool mama of two very tenacious, strong-willed kiddos. In my former life, I was a speech language pathologist, and kind of through my own personal necessity, found myself in the holistic functional health space, specifically women's health space. I married my high school sweetheart, and I had always known that I wanted kids. We had both known we always wanted kids, but since I was 15, I knew that I wanted to be a mom. It was always in my plan. And I had been a very, I don't know if I want to say like typical millennial, but I was very much raised with like you know, achieve and like do your very best and, you know, kind of that perfectionistic, overachieving type A personality. And, you know, did all the things that I was supposed to do, did like AP courses in high school, went on to get my bachelor's of science and then my master's of science in speech language pathology, got the job that's supposed to be really good and reliable, making a good income, and got married, had kids. And I very quickly realized that I had very unrealistic expectations of what motherhood was going to be like. I kind of thought it would just be a continuation of my life as it was. I was always very, you know, competent and put together and kind of was able to do all of the things. And that was not the case after I had my daughter at all. Physically and mentally, I really struggled after I had her in 2016. Physically, my health just completely kind of tanked. I had debilitating insomnia, like the inability to sleep for days at a time, even though I was exhausted. I was super shaky. I had heart palpitations. I had really bad anxiety. And after a couple of weeks of that, I definitely, my mood was, I was so anxious all of the time. I was really depressed. I had no idea what was going on because I was like, I don't understand. This is not how I thought motherhood was going to be for me. And really struggled with, you know, breastfeeding and everything like that. And went to my conventional doctor. She was like, you have postpartum anxiety, you know, here's your medication. And that didn't really work for me. Ended up going through a whole host of doctors and trying a whole bunch of different medications. None of them actually addressed what my underlying root cause was, which, knowing now, I had an undiagnosed thyroid condition postpartum. And I kind of just was like, this is not for me, and dove into more of the holistic health space. And that's kind of what led me here. Is I realized when I really did start focusing on nutrition and lifestyle and gut health and resting and actually relaxing and things like that, that I started really feeling a lot better. And I loved it and I dove all into it, and later went on to become certified as a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner. And now I help other mamas.
That's quite the journey to get there. And it's amazing how much motherhood can be like, it can be such a catalyst for such incredible change and like really aligning and figuring out what your true values are and what actually makes you happy. And yeah, it's this beautiful kind of unfurling that it can provide us as women, which is so neat. But yeah, there's so much there. Okay, so you started as a speech language pathologist. Are you still doing that work?
I am not, because I realized again, when I went through this journey, how much of those things that I thought I wanted for myself were not actually mine. And I think when I dove into the holistic functional health space, it just lit me up in a way that never did. And the whole reason I became a speech language pathologist was because I wanted to help people, and, you know, specifically children. And I think I just realized, working in the system, that it was not, the kids were not getting what they needed. It was such a overburdened system, very similarly to how like the healthcare system is. I know you have that experience probably as a nurse as well. And I ended up just being mostly like a desk jockey, like just doing the assessments and writing reports and being in meetings, had very little actual touch time with the kids. I felt like they weren't actually, I felt like the work that I was doing with them wasn't actually getting them the types of improvements that they needed. And so, yeah, I'm no longer doing that anymore. It was kind of like that was really a catalyst too, because I knew probably 3 or 4 years before I quit that job that it was not lighting me up. As soon as I had my daughter and really started focusing on me and my health, I was like, I don't even want to be away from her. Like, I don't want to be at this job, let alone one that I did not love. And when COVID happened, it ended up kind of being like that little shove, I think, from the universe that I needed to be like, okay, this is not for me. This is not going to be a system that is aligned with my values anymore at all. And so that's really when I was like, okay, I love this functional holistic health stuff. Like, what can I do to get me into that realm? And I'd already been a certified nutrition coach and like certified personal trainer. And so I kind of just went from more of just like the nutrition, physical health or fitness into that functional certification program and was like, all right, this is it. We're just going to make this happen, make it work. And it was, when I do it, I feel like I'm not working. It's something that I just really enjoy. And I feel like it was kind of naturally something that I was good at.
Yeah, that's the ticket right there. When you do the work, it doesn't even feel like work.
Yeah.
That's true success in my eyes. Um, so you've touched on this idea of like the difference between allopathic medicine, so like the typical healthcare system, it's so reactionary. It's not health care, it's sick care, compared
Exactly.
to this like functional medicine, holistic health that's looking at what is the root cause. Because with medicine, that's really not the goal. It's not the goal. It's keeping you alive pretty much, right? But it's
Yep.
not looking at actually healing people. And like you said, what you wanted to do was help people. And I have a very similar story, right? I mean, I was a nurse for 10 plus years, just wanted to help people. I loved my job. I chose a role that really matched my personality out of the million directions I could have gone with nursing. But still, it was the same experience. There's no root cause approach. It's all just responding and reacting and trying to, catch up to whatever's happening and, adding more drugs, more medications without ever looking at diet and lifestyle. And then, on a personal level, I also, have some thyroid, whatever stuff. And I remember waiting like 6 months to go see an endocrinologist. And I show up and it was the biggest waste of time. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe I had to wait 6 months for this. She pretty much looked at me, told me, "You're not sick enough. Come back when you're sicker. I can't do anything to help you." And then me playing like devil's advocate because I already knew so much about functional health. I was like, oh, like, are there any like diet or lifestyle things I could be changing? And she literally looked me like straight in the eyes and was like, no, don't bother. I was like, okay, like you have just lost all credibility. It's out the window. Like, why would any healthcare provider in any specialty ever look at a person who's asking, especially about changing their diet and lifestyle? Why would you say no? Even if you don't believe that that's going to make a difference, why would you ever do that? Because again, it's not healthcare, right? It's incredible. I just couldn't believe it. So I think it kind of paints the picture of, yeah, like the huge difference between the two types of models, like the allopathic versus the more functional. Yeah. So can you tell us a little bit about, a little more about like the work that you do now as a do now? Oh my God, I'm a child. Um, that you do now as a functional diagnostic nutritionist. What does that mean? What does that look like?
So what makes it really unique, and again, when I say functional and holistic, there are a lot of other, naturopathic practitioners or, allopath or naturopathic practitioners or even doctors of functional medicine who, just because they have those titles, they still approach health very differently, because a lot of times when they come from that background of allopathic medicine first. Like most functional doctors of functional medicine were at first doctors of conventional medicine, realized there's a huge gap here, kind of like what you just talked about and all of the downfalls of, hey, like I'm not actually helping anybody. And so they kind of go over to this, more functional approach where they are looking at some of those root causes. Maybe they are running some of those functional labs, but a lot of times too, they don't have that true holistic view of health in terms of like, this is not just a body. Like you are a person who has like very real experiences, especially in that postpartum gap, like when we're dealing with really like matrescence and very specific on like female hormones and physiology and how that changes during pregnancy and after. And so it really is one of those things too, where I truly make sure that I am addressing all of the clients that I work with whole body, like mind, body, spirit. I want to know about your entire life. I want to know about how you're living your life, what stresses you have in your life, how your relationships are, all of those things. So the very first thing that I do is I do a very thorough intake. So sometimes that takes like over an hour, just getting to know you and like asking truly about like all of your symptoms and all of these different areas. And then from there, one of the hallmarks of the training that I received as a FDN is that we are basically like health detectives. And so We test, we don't guess, because that is another thing that I see sometimes, even when you go to like a doctor of functional medicine, is maybe they'll run one or they'll maybe run two labs. And a lot of times too, we get in this like, well, here's your diagnosis because they're still a doctor. Here's your Band-Aid, except maybe instead of a pharmaceutical, it's a supplement. I'm looking at,
Yes.
okay, yes, we absolutely use supplements, but they truly are a supplement to the nutrition, the lifestyle, the nervous system stuff, which is huge. And then that, mental, emotional, like reprogramming that you like really have to walk everyone through, because a lot of times it's our thoughts and it's these programs we have running in our mind all day that are also keeping us sick. And so the way I approach health is, yes, like we absolutely want to know you as a person, because your plan needs to be very individualized. It needs to be something that works for you. I do thorough labs. So when I'm working with my clients who are either, well, first off, like the people that I usually work with are women who are either trying to conceive or are planning to conceive, women who are pregnant, who are wanting some more nutritional support, making sure that everything is optimal, not just normal based on like conventional OBGYN standards. And then where like my heart and my passion really is those mamas who are already postpartum, who maybe didn't know the things that could have really supported them better during preconception and prenatal, that are just not feeling good. And they really fall through the cracks. Like, at least even in conventional care, like, that like a woman who is pregnant, she's going to have regular appointments with an OBGYN if she's going through conventional care, or she has options to like go see a midwife. But often for that postpartum period, there's really very little, if any, follow-up or support. And very few providers are actually trained like specifically in postpartum physiology and like what those, women's bodies are dealing with in terms of all of their systems. And then really that like matrescence piece, like really navigating the social, emotional, like psychological, physiological changes, hormonal changes, all of those things. So that is really like where I focus. So I do look at hormones, but that's all hormones, not just sex hormones, which is what most people think of in terms of, women's hormones. But I'm looking at cortisol, I'm looking at thyroid, I'm looking at blood sugar. I always look at minerals. So every single client I work with that has any sort of testing, I always look at minerals, because you could be doing all of the other things right, but if your minerals aren't balanced, your cells can't actually use any of those good things. And minerals are literally like the foundation of all metabolic processes in your body. So how well your body produces energy. And they are huge for women, especially women who have already had children, because with each pregnancy, your minerals are depleted by about 10% if you haven't intentionally tried to make sure that you're replenishing those as you're pregnant. So that is a huge amount of minerals. It's actually about 4 pounds to like give that a little bit more of like a quantity. Like that's a lot of minerals. So I always work on those. And then I also do gut testing, because you get, a lot of people are basically saying like the root of all illness is like starts in the gut. And I'm like, I slightly disagree, but yes, it is very important. Like we have that gut brain axis. It directly communicates with our brain and vice versa. And most your microbiome changes during pregnancy. So a lot of times, and your digestion changes and everything like that. So that's usually something that most people could do with supporting. And then I also look at functional blood chemistry. So again, those are just like, how's your blood cell count? Like, how is your immune system functioning? Do you have inflammation? Looking at some of like iron levels are also really huge. So just looking at all of those things. And so it truly is like a holistic, very thorough approach, which makes it, I feel like, is what makes it the most effective for clients getting results. I don't want to say like quickly, because it's not a quick fix, but when you actually know what it is that their body needs, you can dial it in so much faster with like very specific nutrition, very specific lifestyle strategies for them. And then definitely like the supplements, you can kind of dial those in just to give them a boost while they're starting to implement more of the nutrition and lifestyle things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that boost is so important. That's kind of where I'm at right now. I somehow am in this place, like I just finished weaning in September. And I think since then is when I've really started to notice like, okay, something's kind of off here, which to me, in a lot of ways makes a little bit of sense. Things are finally like kind of leveling out again. All of those, breastfeeding hormones are settling back down. And I just kind of like stopped at one point. I was like, wait a minute, like I actually feel really bad, but I don't have the energy to do all of these things that I know I should be doing. So like, and I think a lot of the like health and wellness advice out there doesn't make a lot of sense for postpartum women who are already
Yeah,
in a little bit of that survival mode. So what's
exactly.
different about your approach? Like, how do you help those women who are, so exhausted and yeah, like having a hard time just, making themselves a meal to begin with? Yeah. Like, what are some of your best
Yeah,
kind of, yeah.
that's a great question. So the first thing I do is I meet everyone where they are at. So I can give you the best like long-term, goals for these things, these lifestyle and nutrition factors for your long-term goal. But that is the last thing you want to do is just info dump on these women who are already really overwhelmed, really tired
Mhm.
to where they just feel so overwhelmed or it feels so hard that they're just like, forget it. So it's almost about doing less
Mhm.
especially in the beginning, especially for women who are postpartum. And when I say that, like once you're postpartum, you're forever postpartum, but especially in like that first like 3, 6 months to a year, really making sure that they understand the true importance of deep nourishment and getting enough food. So like if you had to focus on like two things, it would be deeply nourishing yourself with like nutrient dense, warm, really nourishing foods, specifically minerals, and then also reducing your stress as much as possible. So oftentimes, and I see women and moms just expecting like, oh, maybe I'll take like a week or maybe two. Most moms don't even do that. They haven't been told that, you should be in the bed, 5 days in the bed, 5 days on the bed, 5 days around the bed minimum. And so many other cultures around the world have like at least a 40-day period where the mom is being completely taken care of. She's being brought like healthy, warm, nourishing meals. All of the household chores are being taken care of for her. There's someone else coming into the home to really help her. And it's all about her recovery and allowing her to be able to bond with baby by taking care of just like those basic needs that support safety and her rest and relaxation. And so when women don't get that, like their body is in a profoundly more stressed state, especially like most new moms are already dealing with some level of sleep deprivation, dealing with a new baby, unless you are blessed with the baby who just comes out like sleeping. Um,
Yeah.
and so your body is already under a lot of stress. So adding more stress is not going to help. It's going to be counterproductive. So as much as you can rest and relax and like truly do non-productive time and really just allow your body to heal. And also the nourishment piece is huge. So for a lot of moms in Western culture, since we typically live in, very like nuclear little families, we're not living with either parents anymore. We don't live with other family or things like that. I always recommend if you can, which I realize like it is definitely a privileged thing to be able to access that. But if you can get a doula or if you have like a family member or even like a trusted friend who you feel comfortable enough who will come into your house and like help you do the dishes and do your laundry and take care of your like, be with your other kids while you're resting and relaxing and providing food for you or grocery shopping for you. So at least you have the raw materials at home, all of those types of things. But the two biggest things are always going to be at the minimum. And if you're breastfeeding, this doesn't really apply either because you need so many extra calories. That is such an energy expensive process on so many levels. But the two biggest things are reduce your stress, which mostly means like resting and sleeping and allowing your body to heal as much as possible, and deeply nourishing yourself with enough nutrient dense foods, specifically minerals.
Hmm. Yeah, I love that. I'm kind of laughing because I just randomly looked at this like thyroid health meal plan, and
Mhm.
literally every single meal was a new
Yeah.
recipe. I was like, how is this practical at all? Like you have,
Yeah.
poor thyroid function, you're exhausted, you
Yep.
maybe a new mom. I mean, this wasn't tailored for mothers, but like it just
Yeah.
doesn't make zero sense. So that's what I mean by these like practical ways, like cooking a huge big pot of some kind of warm,
Yes.
nourishing stew and then eating it for leftovers, freezing it.
Mhm.
Yeah, and like if
It's
you can
it's those my husband always calls them kiss meals, like keep it simple, stupid meals. But like if you can just do like a massive crock pot,
Yeah.
bulk of some sort of soup, even if you're getting things like bone broth in. And there are some brands of bone broth you can buy from the store if that's not
Mm.
something you have capacity for, making your own at that point. There's always ways around it, but make yourself some chicken soup, or have someone make it for you, or some sort of like very warm, nourishing, comforting meal that
Mm.
is just going to give your body like the nutrients that it needs, something that has like really has yeah, just whole food nutrition. That is the piece
Mhm.
that I feel like is missing, because that is where all of the minerals are, and the vitamins and things that you need are coming from. But yeah, if you can bulk prep that, or have someone come in and do it for you, or
Mhm.
even before, if you have that ability to prep meals before you give birth that can just be frozen, that you can just thaw, like have some soups that are in bulk that you just stash in your freezer
Mhm.
and thaw those out. But that is too why I really recommend, if you can, getting a postpartum doula, or even someone that, get a meal delivery service or something, just so
Mhm.
that you have that access. Because I know it is hard, especially when you're sleep deprived or you're nursing and you've got other kiddos running around. And it's hard sometimes to even just have the time to cook for yourself. But with my mamas that I know are struggling specifically with their thyroid, I always recommend starting with minerals, which is why I love the hair tissue mineral analyses so much, just because, again, the minerals is, if those are imbalanced, like you could be doing all of the right things, like you could be eating all of the right foods, you could be doing all of the, stress reduction techniques, but if your cells can't actually use that because your minerals are imbalanced, you're still going to struggle. And that is one of the things of many that drives me nuts about how conventional medicine approaches thyroid health specifically, is they never assess your minerals other than in the blood,
Mhm.
which is the least accurate way to assess minerals. But if your sodium and potassium are low, your thyroid hormone, even if your body's making it, can't get into the cell.
Mm.
So that's a problem, because
Yeah.
even if you're on thyroid medication and like on paper, they're like, oh, well, your thyroid hormone levels are up, you should be all good. A lot of women who are on thyroid medication still don't feel good. They're still tired
Yeah.
because there's a piece missing. It's either the autoimmune piece, which I say in quotes because I don't truly believe in autoimmune conditions either.
Ooh.
Yeah, which is spicy. But yeah, like there's that component which has an immune component that is not addressed by thyroid medication, and they don't
No.
care. They don't even delve into it unless you really push them to check your antibodies. And then if they check your antibodies, they're going to be like, okay, cool, you just stay on thyroid medication.
Yeah.
So that's an issue, and they don't check minerals. So
Mhm.
I'm like, you can't have any, or like your minerals also control hormone sensitivity in your body for all hormones. So that's just one of the things I'm like, they just don't check it. And it's not their fault. I don't mean to sound like I'm beating up on conventional medicine, because these
Mhm.
doctors truly don't have the intention to like most of them, right? There are those humans out
Yeah.
there
Yeah.
in all trades, but they have the intention to help their patients feel better. But they didn't learn this in conventional medicine, like in their training. They don't know. So, and they don't, they only know what they know. And they've been told that this is the way that you treat thyroid
Yeah.
conditions, but there's this huge gap missing. And I
Mhm.
just look at it, especially for women, 1 in 7 women will be diagnosed with a thyroid condition in her lifetime. On average, it takes 6 years with conventional medicine to get diagnosed with a chronic condition. And
Mm.
within the first year
Wow.
after birth, women have a 28% increased risk of being diagnosed with an autoimmune condition. So this is just showing like this is pretty unique to women, to female physiology, to postpartum women. And there is just this massive gap. So that is even on like the functional side or the conventional side, definitely more on the conventional side. They are not looking at these things that are affecting women disproportionately.
Mhm. So, do you want to go there? I want to know more
Sure.
about your thoughts around autoimmune, because that's how I knew that I guess air quotes, like had a thyroid condition. My TSH is still within normal range. It's on the higher end. But I have TPO antibodies, and they've been as
Mhm.
high as, like, I don't know, they won't even show you the result because they're
Yeah.
so high.
Hi.
So yeah,
Yeah.
tell me more.
So I have a couple of different thoughts about autoimmune. So when I say autoimmune, that's honestly, and here's the other thing too, is so I don't actually believe in the diagnoses either. That is a very conventional medicine paradigm, right? They have to
Yeah.
give it a label so that they can justify the treatment, which they bill
Right.
insurance for. And I know you're in Canada, so you guys don't do the whole insurance thing the way that we do here in the
Mhm.
United States. It makes no sense. It's absolutely batty. But anyways, so the way that they are addressing that in terms of like autoimmune, they're basically saying, we don't know what's wrong with you. We're just going to blame your body. Your body is the problem. It's attacking itself. I'm like, the body doesn't make mistakes. It is responding to something it's in its environment. So you just have to figure out what your body uniquely is responding to and address that, support it, right? Like your body is not just out of left field. It goes against everything that I know to be true about how our body functions. Like our body goes through, that is its number one goal, is survival at all costs, right? Like that is literally the basis of how all of our hormones work. That cortisol, which is that fight, flight, stress hormone, either you're running from a bear to survive, you're either going to outrun it or you're going to not make it, right? But if your cortisol is constantly pumping because you're under some form of stress, it's going to down regulate all of your other hormones because the only thing that's important is surviving. So I'm like, that doesn't make sense. Just knowing the primary function of our entire body is to survive. Why would our body attack itself? It doesn't make sense. So it's just responding to something. And it's being triggered by, your immune system is being triggered by something. So whether it's, some sort of food that you're eating that your body's not agreeing with. And again, we could get into that because it's honestly probably not the foods itself anymore. It's the way that they are conventionally processed and modified and all of that. It's not something your body recognizes as being natural a lot of the times. So it might not actually be like the whole food that it once was once upon a time. You're reacting to something else. It could be that you have some sort of underlying infection or something like that your body is dealing with. You might be having a lot of toxins coming into your environment and you're having a hard time detoxing. And so that's triggering your immune system. You could have, what they call leaky gut, meaning that the lining of your gut, your intestinal lining isn't intact. And so things that are supposed to stay in your gut are getting out into your bloodstream, which they're not supposed to be there. So your body's reacting appropriately by producing antibodies to something that's not supposed to be there. There's just so many things. And then I'm just now starting to get into German new medicine a little bit. Which is so interesting and so fascinating, but they're basically just about all of these different biological conflicts that we can have, that are just manifesting in body. So I don't actually believe that your body is attacking itself. I truly believe that your body is giving you symptoms because it's communicating to you. That's the only way it can get your attention. And it's just showing you, hey, like there's something here. It's an opportunity for healing. We just have to figure out what it is. So that's kind of how I approach it.
And that's like the big difference too, right? Is like in allopathic medicine, there just isn't that like investigation to the root cause. It's just like you said, like slapping band-aids and dealing with symptoms, managing symptoms. That's all it is. It's like, oh, you feel tired, take this to give you energy, but it's not looking at why are you tired? Why are you feeling tired? Even if your labs all look, air quotes, normal.
Yeah. And that's the thing is being tired is probably completely appropriate for the things that are going on in your life. Your body's trying to tell you by giving you low energy, we're either not getting something that we need or we're getting too much of something that we don't need. This is a problem. So I'm going to let you know we have a problem by making you really tired. So by just taking something that maybe would make you not tired, I don't know what they'd give you, steroid, I don't know, more thyroid hormone, I don't know. That's not addressing the reason. So your body's like, oh, darn it, I'm going to have to get her attention in another way. Let's give her migraines or something now instead. Maybe that'll get her attention. Someone will figure it out. I look at it as your body is your ally. And when you're having symptoms, it's actually, for the way that I view it, is it's actually a sign that your body is working correctly because it's responding to its environment. If it wasn't responding to its environment, you would be dead, right? So that's kind of just how I look at it, is they're not good or bad. It's just information and communication from your body.
I think that's such a healthy way to look at it too, because we can get so caught up in that identity of like, oh, I'm sick. My body doesn't work. I hate my body. And that just perpetuates it even more. Your body is listening. Your cells are,
that's a huge part of why I also, and I fell, I guess, victim to this too, is when I was struggling really badly after I had my daughter, I wanted answers. I was like, just tell me what's wrong and fix it. And so we could get like so existential over that, but it was, and that's, I think too, part of how we're conditioned, right? You have a problem, you don't feel good, you go to the doctor, they diagnose you, they give you whatever it is, and you get better. But when I look at it now, one of the worst things that I did was I completely bought into, and it kept me really stuck for a really long time, when all these doctors were like, you have severe postpartum anxiety and depression, or they'd be like, you have treatment resistant depression. I felt so deeply broken. And I was like, oh my gosh, like what is wrong with me? And I pathologized myself. And so it is, like kind of like you said, like it makes you feel like, what is wrong with me? And when you have those thoughts, you're right, like your cells listen, like that produces stress hormones in your body. It's going to have a chemical response. And so that is one of the things too, is when I work with women and they're like, well, I have this diagnosis, I have this diagnosis, I have this diagnosis. And I'm like, okay, it's all information. So we know we're going to be looking for healing opportunities. I don't care what it is. The way I approach it is exactly the same. We're going to do your, lifestyle and medical history form. You're going to tell me about your life, how you're living your life, what your relationships are looking like. And then we're going to test all of these different areas, and we're going to look at what your body is telling us that it needs. And we're going to put these strategies in place that you can like slowly kind of implement to just give your body the support that it's looking for. Like I don't diagnose anything. That's not part of my certification. We don't diagnose, we don't treat, we don't prescribe. We are not medical doctors in any way, which I look at as like a positive thing. Cause I'm like, my job is not to tell you all of the things that's going wrong with your body. It's just to tell you all these opportunities to give your body what it's asking for. And I truly believe like your body can heal and recover from anything, barring that you've had anything maybe like physically removed, which is also a whole other thing. I'm like, it just doesn't make sense to me. And I'm like, I laugh because otherwise like I would probably cry. And I have cried on behalf of a lot of my clients and gotten so angry because it's just not fair. But it's like when, maybe they try medication, it doesn't work, or you don't want medication. They're like, let's just cut it out. Yeah. Let's just get rid of it and take it out. And I'm like, oh, it makes me so sad. But yeah, I mean, in terms of just how powerful your thoughts are, going back to some of the cultures that had like the witch doctors or the bone doctors, and they would like shake that bag of bones and point at somebody and be like, like you're going to die or something. And that would happen for no apparent reason, right? Like it's just going to show that the power of your thoughts and the way that you are approaching it is almost the most important thing. And so approaching it from a place of curiosity and just, deep compassion and gratitude for your body, and trusting its ability to heal is so much more important, because I do see a lot of times too clients who have, gone to functional or doctors of functional medicine, or they've done all these things and they're trying so hard that they're almost like obsessed with all of the health things, and so obsessive about the supplements and all of the things. I'm like, that is in some cases almost more stressful and keeping you stuck, because you're so like, that's all, it's consuming all of your thoughts. Like that's really why I'm always focused on the nutrition and the lifestyle pieces of it, because that is, the reducing stress and the deep nourishment. Like those are the things that really matter. It's not all of the supplements. Like you're never going to out medicate, out biohack, or out supplement poor nutrition, lifestyle, and like a dysregulated nervous system. So those are the big rocks that have to come first, because that's what, for the most part, for most of us, got us into whatever current, health experience we're experiencing.
Yeah. Yeah. So many things. Oh my gosh. The one thing that's come to mind is, so like, I think it's so easy to start thinking, like for me, for example, I've been doing so much like somatic coaching type of work, very focusing on, communicating with my body and like healing things emotionally. But you can still get stuck in thinking, like, for example, I'm doing all this nervous system work, but I'm still feeling dysregulated. I'm still getting so angry. And I've realized it's like, well, I didn't eat breakfast today.
Oh.
I didn't hydrate today. Like it's all connected, and we can so easily start to think that things are separate, even when we are like holistically minded. You can still get caught in thinking like, well, I'm doing all this work in this one area. Why am I still having these symptoms or experiences in other areas? And I think this is what's so beautiful about actually working with someone else, because they can like see these little places that you're getting stuck. Like, again, I'm using myself as an example because this is where I'm at right now. It was like such a subtle journey. I can't think of a better word. a subtle shift to this place where I was finally like, what's going on? Why do I feel so bad? And I realized it's like, well, I'm getting up, I'm drinking coffee first thing. It's the first thing I put in my mouth. Then I'm not eating breakfast for hours. Sometimes if I go straight into working, it's 1 o'clock before I like come up for air and realize, oh, I haven't eaten yet. That's why I feel so angry and agitated.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think being able to work with somebody else who can kind of look at the big picture and help you figure out what are the little ways, the little tweaks, the little habit changes that you can implement that are going to help you feel so much better. And it's those like simple little tweaks, like, okay, wake up and have a glass of water first, then eat something, and then have your coffee, like,
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, and that's the thing too, is like, even as a functional practitioner, like I don't treat myself. I go and have someone else help because they do see those gaps, right? And they point
yeah,
out things that you might be missing. And I think too, for when you are really tired and you are really overwhelmed, you could absolutely try and DIY it yourself. Like you could, like the internet is
yeah,
filled with so much information that you could get for free, and you can piece it together and kind of trial and error it and do that. Or if you work with someone who one understands, especially for women, like uniquely postpartum physiology and maybe how the changes that happen postpartum led to years down the road other health conditions, and you go back to that starting place of, well, this is probably where it came from, so let's check all of these things out and individualize something for you based on data of what
mhm,
your body is saying it needs. Like I said earlier, I don't want to imply that it's like a quick fix, because it's not a band-aid quick fix.
yeah,
Like it's not just like, here's your 25-pound bag of supplements. Like, let's just mess with the numbers of, or the levels of nutrients. It's okay. Here are these things to give your body a boost, what it's asking for, to give you some symptom relief now, while you go
mhm,
back and address the reason that those deficiencies or whatever it was there in the first place. Um, yeah.
yeah.
So it does, if you can, it definitely makes sense to seek someone out who understands and who can help you feel better faster.
Yeah. Yeah. And so for the moms listening, I know you've kind of given some little tips and tweaks and things. You've mentioned minerals a lot. Like, what is
Mm.
an easy way for that like exhausted, overwhelmed mom to start, even not just related to minerals, but like, what are some really easy ways, like practical tips that they can leave this episode with and go implement in their own life
Yeah.
to feel
So
better?
one of the easiest ways to get minerals, and this is the thing too, because a lot of us have been told, if you listen to conventional health models, that salt is bad. Avoid salt. You're going to get
Mm,
high blood pressure. Add salt, but when I say salt, I mean real salt, like unrefined, pure sea salt. So I love like Celtic sea salt. That's a brand. Redmond's real salt, something like Crucial 4, or the other one that I can think of is Jacobson. But add a little pinch of sea salt to your water and have that in the morning when you wake up. You could add a little lemon in it if you want. Bonus points if it's like warm or like hot, because that's a nice thing to put into
mm,
your body first thing in the morning. It also really helps with digestion. But so sea salt is a great way to get some minerals in there for your sodium. And then potassium wise, so you can drink them. Coconut water is a great source. And again, this might not be for everybody, kind of depending on your own unique health right now, or like if you're pregnant, some of these things might not work for you. But like aloe vera juice is a good source of potassium. Tropical fruits, that's a great source of potassium. All of those types of things, really just loading those in. And then again, going back to nutrient dense foods. So we also want a variety, but if there are foods that you really like, so things like grass fed red meat, that has a great amount of vitamins and also minerals that you need. Things like oysters or shellfish, if you like them, those are great sources of minerals. Things like seaweed and other fish and things like that are a good source of iodine. You can get things like selenium, again, from like sardines or from Brazil nuts, things like that. So you really do just want to eat whole foods, even if they're just like, you go to the store and get a box of good quality bone broth if you don't have the capacity to make your own. But those are
mm,
all ways that you can add things and just get them into your diet. And then you also want to focus on protein and eating enough food specifically. So every single client I've ever worked with comes to me not eating enough food. And that right there could be the main problem for them,
Mm,
because
yeah.
it's going to slow down your metabolism, even as little. Oh, now I can't remember exactly. So don't quote me here. I think it's even as little as 300 to 500 calories of a reduction can decrease your thyroid hormone by a pretty significant amount. And I think it
Mm-hmm.
was like in as little as 6 weeks. So not a lot of time. So if you're looking at where the majority of women are, not always intentionally, sometimes intentionally, but a lot of times it's completely unintentional. They've been under eating for decades because we just don't realize how much food and energy our body actually needs to just do its basic things like breathe and blink and beat your heart and all of those things outside of if you are active and when you are under a lot of stress, whether that's mental, emotional stress, whether it's physical stress, you're going to need even more calories. So that is always where I start is like just making sure that you're getting in nutrient dense foods, specifically the minerals, and then making sure that you are eating enough food. So if you are not eating at a minimum 3 full, and I say like grown ass woman meals a day, like we're not eating like toddler portions. We're not eating like your kid's leftover PB and jelly crust or
I'm
like,
called out. I feel called out.
very lovingly called out though. And you're not the only one too. And a lot of times too, when women are not feeling great, we go to the internet, right? We go to Instagram or see like even in the holistic health space, so many of my clients are like, well, I've been intermittent fasting because I hear it's so good for you. And I'm like, well, you're already stressed. You're already depleted. That is actually not good for your body. And if you're a cycling female, I very rarely, if ever, recommend intermittent fasting. Definitely not like all month long or every single day or anything like that. Um, so yeah, and keto, all of that, like that would be a whole other thing, or like low fat diets, all of those things. It really goes back to moderation and like eating enough whole foods, like a variety of
Mhm.
whole foods, enough protein, enough fats, enough carbs, all of
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, what I'm thinking of is like for myself, I have a lot of knowledge about nutrition. I'm technically a holistic nutritionist as well. Haven't been practicing or anything like that. But it's like I'm at this place where I almost have too much information in my head
Mm.
where it's like, okay, I know I need to eat whole foods, but oh, gluten is bad and oh, meat, yep, need that, but don't eat too much dairy. And it's like I kind of end up just numb and like, well, I don't know what to eat. Even out of
Yeah.
all these like whole healthy whole options,
Yeah.
whatever you want to call them. It's like I get kind of frozen and like, well, I don't know what to eat. And I've lost all creativity with food. And now I'm literally eating 3 things.
Yeah. Been there, done that.
Yeah.
And it is hard too, especially because like you said, like information is a good thing, but too much information can give you that analysis paralysis and you get like overload.
Yeah.
And so that like triggers your nervous system, right? We don't think
Yeah.
very clearly with our brain when we're in like fight or flight mode. And that is something too that I really do believe in like nutrition being very highly individualized, because when you look
Mm.
at it too from like an ancestral perspective, like based on your heritage, you might have a better response to different types of foods. Some people do better with more protein and fat, and they don't do very well with carbs. That doesn't mean don't ever
Mhm.
eat carbs at all, because your thyroid will hate you. And some people do better with more carbs and more fat, and not so well with protein. They have a hard time digesting it. So I always approach it as one, like, your body best, and your body knows, like, it will tell you what it does and does not like. And so that is the other thing, because usually by the time I've gotten clients come to me, they're like, I've tried all the elimination diets. I'm already gluten free. I'm already dairy free, and those types of
Mhm.
things. And they're like, well, now do I need to cut out all, like, do I need to not eat rice? Do I need to not eat potatoes? Do I not
It's
need
like,
to not
what's
eat this?
left?
Right. And so I always approach it as, well, let's just start with first getting enough food. Like, let's
Mhm.
just give your body enough calories. And then we can talk about, let's make sure we're getting enough protein. Let's make sure we're getting enough fat. Let's make sure we're getting enough carbs. After those things, it's like, let's talk about the qualities of food. And I'm always like, you keep track of what your body is telling you, which, I know now that my body, the only grain that my body likes and tolerates without giving me bloating or without giving me any digestive issues is quinoa. And so that's fine. So I just know, and that doesn't mean I don't ever eat, rice or something like that, but I just know if I have too much of this, my body doesn't love it. Um, some people truly are dairy intolerant or don't handle dairy well. And again, you could argue maybe it's because it's conventional dairy and it's been heated to all bejesus and doesn't have the enzymes to help you digest it. But some people truly don't do well with dairy. So I do not do well with A1 dairy, which is like typical cow's milk dairy, but I can tolerate A2 dairy. So things from like cows or not cows, sheep or goats or a very specific type of cow. I think it's Jersey cows. I'm pretty sure it's Jersey cows, make A2 dairy. Yeah. So it's like, your body best. You just have to learn to listen to it. But I really want people to get out of this paradigm of like good versus bad foods when it comes to whole foods. And again, like, I'm not saying completely restrict yourself from having any sort of, quote unquote, like fun food. Like I still make cookies for my kids all the time, but the ingredients I'm using are, whole food ingredients, and they don't have the added chemicals or preservatives and things like that in it. And again, too, at some point, like if you want to go out to a holiday party and enjoy that, do that. Just, you got to, as long as you're the majority of the time eating food that is actually nourishing your body and giving it what it needs in terms of vitamins and minerals and eating enough calories, the stuff like, going out and just eating whatever's there and just enjoying yourself, like that's also important for enjoyment and pleasure. Like that is also really important. It's just the majority of the time. Always, every single time, listen to your body and, just learn what your body's communication is. Like, how do you know when, your body is responding to a certain food? Do you get bloating? Do you get, are you constipated? Do you have diarrhea? Do you get a headache? Like whatever it is, those are the ways that your body's communicating to you. Hey, like we might have eaten something that is not serving us.
Yeah. And what's coming up for me is like, well, sure, my body will tell me, but what if it's just those antibodies and then I have no symptoms? Like, what if it could still not be agreeing with me? And I think that's where some of my like paralysis comes from. It's like, well, what if my body still doesn't like it and I don't know?
Yeah,
I should eat nothing.
No, definitely not. Definitely eat food. That's just the thing too. So usually for if you have thyroid antibodies, specifically like the TPO, that would be what conventional medicine would say is Hashimoto's thyroiditis. And so two of the main things are reducing your stress and also healing your gut is huge. But usually for that, they recommend gluten-free. So that is one of the things that in the research is pretty thoroughly conclusive, is that typically if you have Hashimoto's, they recommend being gluten-free. So outside of that, that is pretty much the only recommendation where I'm telling a client, you should probably try this for at least like 30 to 60 days and at least just see how you feel. But other than that, it's very highly individual.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for everybody listening, 2 things you're going to do. You're going to eat grown ass woman size portions, 3 meals a day at least. And we're going to start our days with a nice mineral drink. That is for sure what I'm going to add for myself, because I really need to break this habit of like literally walking out of the bedroom and making it's a half calf coffee. So I've reduced the caffeine for sure. But it's still the first thing I put in my mouth in the morning. So that's my big like habit I'm trying to break. Starting with a nice warm, maybe mineral drink. What's your biggest like stress reduction? Because I can feel people like rolling their eyes.
Yes, I know.
Like, reduce stress.
I'm always like, and I feel like this is a little bit of a loaded question too, and I'm always like, moms are probably going to want to punch me in the face when I say reduce your stress. Because a lot of the times what we consider to be normal stress or unavoidable stress, we really do just need to take a look at our priorities and realize that the vast majority of us are trying to do too much. So there's a little bit of soul searching that needs to happen there. So really looking at like, how many things are you doing out of obligation instead of out of desire? If it's not for the immediate benefit of someone that is so incredibly important to you in your life, or that you really love, or is not immediately responsible for keeping a roof over your head and food on the table, what can you let go? What can you take off of your plate? Because without exception, there's always something that can go. So basically, like, get rid of what does not need to be there. And especially if it's something that you just dread doing or does not bring you joy, that would be one of the first things. But also learning how to just truly rest. And when I say rest, I mean non-productive rest. So a lot of times I'm just like, oh yeah, like I'll sit and I'll listen to a podcast. And I'm like, well, is it a self-development podcast? Is it an educational podcast? Is it something really thought-provoking? Because if it is, your brain's still going. It is not resting. So it's always about connecting to like joy and pleasure in your daily life. So I always say like you could reduce stress just by being more immersed and making everything an experience. So what can you see? What can you hear? What can you feel? What can you smell? What can you taste? Like really
Mm-hmm.
being in the moment and just that is very soothing for your brain and your nervous system. So just literally orienting to your environment and being a little bit more mindful. It does not require any extra time. You could do it while you're washing dishes. You could do it while you're doing laundry. You could do it while you're driving. You can do it while
Mm-hmm.
you're doing anything. So just having that mindfulness of being in the present moment instead of the alternative being maybe you're washing dishes and you're like, oh my gosh, I have to go to the grocery store after this. I have to go pick up my kid at, this, and then we have to get
Mm-hmm.
to soccer. What am I going to make for dinner? Like very different than, oh, like I'm washing the dishes, like feel the warm water on my hands. Like I can smell maybe like the lavender dish soap that I'm using. Like maybe you can light a clean candle or something and just smell that or play a playlist that you love while you're doing that and really just make it an experience. Take zero extra time. You're already doing the thing, but
Mm-hmm.
your mind is more calm and it's in that
Yeah.
present moment. So those are usually the two things that I recommend. And two, I know moms get so upset because it's part of like their a lot of it's part of their like self-care in a lot of ways. That is a way that you soothe your nervous system is by doom scrolling or like being when you do get a free minute, you plop on the couch, right? And you pop up Instagram or, TikTok or whatever your flavor is. And I'm not saying that doesn't have a place. But the time where it is the least serving to your overall health and goals is late at night when you really should be
Mm-hmm.
sleeping for so many reasons. So the other thing would be prioritizing your sleep because again, sleep is almost arguably more important than nutrition because sleep impacts
Mm-hmm.
how your hormones and things function too. And yeah, your circadian pattern runs everything, and that is tied to consistent sleep. So
Mm-hmm.
not getting enough
Yeah.
sleep, not eating enough food, those are like the two biggie things. And again, prioritizing sleep goes along with stress. That is stress
Mm-hmm.
reduction. That's your body
Yeah.
needs to sleep.
Yeah. And I think for mothers too, it's like, putting yourself first a little bit. Like you have to take care of yourself first. So giving yourself the space. And I don't even mean that you have to leave your baby or go out and do something. It just means like, I need a minute to sit here in silence. And even if a baby's crawling all over you, you can take a few moments to just breathe for 5 minutes
Yep.
and have that
Even
time for
three
yourself.
minutes.
Yes.
Even
Yeah.
3 minutes. Yeah. If
Yeah.
moms can do breath work, even like 3 minutes of, and when I say breath work, it doesn't have to be anything fancy. Like even three
Yeah.
minutes before you get up in the morning, before you even get out of
Yeah.
bed, just close your eyes and really breathe into your body. Feel it, check it out. You can maybe set intentions
Mhm.
for the day or say gratitudes or pray if that's, what makes you feel good. But like just starting your day from more of that grounded place and really
Mhm.
breathing into your body is also really soothing for your nervous system. Would be a great way to kind of de-stress before you start your day instead of immediately just thinking of all the hundreds of things you need to do.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, but the putting yourself first really is essential. Like there is no getting around it. And I know that's something that our society is just conditioned into moms that like you should be able to do it all and be selfless and
Mhm.
put yourself last. That's what makes you a good mom. But it doesn't
Yeah.
really actually in the long run make you good for anyone because you're going to be so tired and so depleted. And that's where a
And
lot of that
angry and
mom,
yelling and
yes. Yeah, that's what I mean. So we can argue and like convince ourselves that basically having that, martyred motherhood aspect of I do everything for everybody else and I put myself last, but it's kind of like, well, how's that working for you? Like you're irritable and
yeah.
then you feel terrible about it. It's like not actually helping your relationships. And I think as moms, the biggest gift that we can give to our children is our own health, right? Because I want to be there for my babies as long as I possibly can. And I want to have a good quality of life so that I can be that mom that's not too tired to go play or, like I want to enjoy myself. I don't want to only be paying attention to my body when it hurts or something's wrong. Like I want to feel good. And for moms too, like we are our kids' role models. So they see us like they're going to have this idea in their heads of what it means to be a mom. Like what does a mom do? Are
Mhm.
moms always tired? Are they always grouchy? Are they always,
Drinking wine
upset?
in the
Or
corner.
yeah, drinking, right? Like coffee to get
Yeah.
going in the morning and wine to
Yeah.
wind down at night, and that is something that I think moms really could benefit from is learning to set boundaries with their own kids too. So like you said, being like, mommy just needs a minute to sit here and rest. This is how I take care of my body so that I can, not be grumpy mommy or whatever you want to say, or nope, mommy needs to eat food right now. Like I'll play with you when I'm finished eating my meal, so that way they understand like, oh, mom's setting a boundary. She's taking care of herself. And so they know when they get older, like, oh, I'm going to be able to take care of myself too.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So I'm starving. So did not eat a proper breakfast. I shoved like a hard-boiled egg in my mouth before this. So I'm going to listen to my body, and we're coming up on the end of our time together. So Katie, where can we find you and how can we work with you?
So I'm on Instagram mostly right now. My handle is at Kate N Galvin, Galvin. So I mostly hang out there, and I work mostly with clients one-to-one. I have both 3 and 6 month programs, and I'm working on a hybrid group program, which is going to be really exciting. That is coming out in January. So those are the two main ways that you can work with me. Just send me a DM on Instagram and we can connect and make sure it's a good fit and that we vibe with each other.
That's it for today. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, I would be ever so grateful if you would leave a review on Apple or rate the show wherever you're listening from. It really does help this show grow and blossom. All right, see you next time.